Hello and welcome to the Telegraph studio. I'm Alistair Greener and today we're going to be discussing how to sell your business. And joining me is David Rebbettes, who's the co-founder at BCMS. Good morning.
Good morning.
So looking at selling your business, why should I sell a business that's successful? And for that matter, why on earth would anybody buy a business that's not successful?
Some of our clients are born entrepreneurs. They started the business 20, 30 years ago, perhaps, full of creativity, full of ideas. They've grown the company very well, but it's grown to the point where it's turned them from an entrepreneur and it's turned them into a manager, if you know what I mean. They're dealing with health and safety issues these days and employment legislation, bureaucracy, staff problems. And it's become a great frustration for them. It's not a natural fit for them. And again, selling the company can liberate them. It rejuvenates the whole situation.
So you're talking about people selling their businesses when they're successful, but what about the unsuccessful ones?
Yeah, one of our clients was a family-owned firm. And they were facing bankruptcy. In fact, I don't think they would have survived the year. And their plea to us was, BCMS, would you sell us at any cost? Just lift this burden off of us and save the jobs of our staff. We identified 276 potential buyers, but we only found 2 companies that were prepared to make a bid. The lowest offer came in at 200,000, and our client said to us, we'll take it. Absolutely, we'll take it, just to lift this burden. The only other offer that we got was for 3.5 million, and our client said, we'll take it, as you can imagine. We said to our client, we think you should allow us to reject their offer.
Wow, that's a brave move. How did they take that?
Courageously. Actually, the way that you reject an offer, if you do it properly, you never put at risk the relationship with the potential purchaser. So they allowed us to reject that offer, and eventually the company was sold to that buyer for 4.2 million. But this is far more about where the owners are at, not whether it's a successful or an unsuccessful business. You can sell successful companies and you can sell unsuccessful companies.
One aspect that dawns on me a little bit about when somebody sells a company is that it's often their baby, isn't it? It's something that they've nurtured from the very beginning, so it's a very emotional experience for them. And you know, they've seen their company grow all the way through those years. How do you split, or how do you balance the emotional side of it to the practicality and the business side of it?
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? This really is an emotional decision. And interestingly, people buy companies for just as emotional reasons as anything else in life. So it's emotional all round. But there's no doubt that selling a company is an emotional issue. It is their baby, after all. And for some people, it can be like opening up the last chapter of your life or closing the penultimate chapter. And that's a bit of an emotional issue. But the reality is very different. Actually, the sale of a company can rejuvenate. It rejuvenates the lives of the owners, the staff, the company itself, of course. One of our clients was in the marine industry, and the owner, a man called James, said to us they needed to make a significant investment. European legislation was demanding an investment, and if they were to maintain their market leadership position, it was important that they did this. James said to us, I know that this investment is absolutely right for the company, but it is also absolutely wrong for me, James, the individual. So they sold the business and the new owners drove that company forwards. Great investment in the business, but it was right for everybody.
So looking at people selling their businesses, what are some of the most dangerous misconceptions that they might have when deciding to sell?
One is to do with the obsession of history. Traditional valuation methods are rooted in past performance. So a financial advisor will look at a company's historic profit. They will make adjustments to that perhaps and then apply a multiple. That is so wrong. The value of a company is far, far more about its future opportunity than its past performance. It's about what a company will look like under new ownership with new resources being applied, not what it used to look like last year under previous ownership with completely different, often very modest resources being applied. One of our clients was involved in life sciences. Relatively young business, doing modestly well, but with lots of untapped potential. The lowest offer that we got for this business was 2.9 million. They eventually sold for 30 million. And it's interesting that the company that paid 30 million for them some weeks earlier put in their first offer of 5 million. It eventually paid 30. It is not about past performance, it's about future opportunity. Now, the way that you unlock this is to generate competitive environment, a choice of buyers, so that then buyer has to think, what is it that this represents to me in terms of future opportunity?
Focusing back on the owner, one of the biggest fears is probably going to be the owner saying to himself, fine, I sell my business today, but what am I going to do tomorrow? What am I going to do with the rest of my life?
You know, so often the sale of a company unlocks future chapters in a person's life that would never naturally happen if they didn't sell the company. Sometimes our clients are serial entrepreneurs and they go on to grow other businesses which they perhaps eventually sell again. Sometimes it's to do with liberating time and spending time with the family. One of our clients used to spend time with his son, taking him to football practice on a Sunday. He'd carve out a few hours of the day. And one particular day, the coach of this football team said to our client and his son, if you want to stay in the first team, you're going to have to practice more. On the way home, the young son, his name was Callum, looked up to his dad and said, Dad, this afternoon, can we practice? And Dad said he hesitated just for a few seconds, but it was enough for Callum to clock it. You're going back to the office, aren't you? And he ran indoors, slamming the door. And it was enough for our client. He realised that something had to change. He had to do something else with his life. He had to resolve this issue. Sometimes it's to do with liberating a pension. For many of our clients, this is their life's work. This is their pension. People sell for all sorts of reasons and do all sorts of things afterwards. One of our clients was in the financial services sector. And in fact, the owner had bought a client from us. Historically, they were so impressed with what they'd seen that they decided to sell their business through us. And the reason was this. The owner was very, very involved with a particular charity. And she was determined that the foreseeable future of her life was to be spent as a volunteer working within that charity. And the sale of the company unlocked that for her, and that's what it was about for her.
We've talked a lot about valuation, and I know it's probably difficult to come up with a valuation, but eventually you have to come up with a figure. How do you go about doing that?
One thing's for sure, Alistair, you cannot value a company. There's a phrase in our industry, and I really dislike it. It says this: a company is worth what somebody's prepared to pay for it. And then the same advisors that gave us those words immediately go away, they apply a multiple of past profits, and then they put it into the public domain. What was that all about? Talk about your actions denying your rhetoric. One minute you're saying don't put a ceiling on it, and the next minute we're putting the worst possible ceiling on and publicising it. Never ever take a company to market with a value attached. It will probably be the most expensive mistake you make in your life. One of our clients was involved in waste management. The business had been valued at 5 million. We identified hundreds of buyers. We got down to 8 bidders, and the lowest offer came in at 3 million. They were trying it on a little bit. They eventually sold for 19.1 million, but interestingly, the company that bought them for 19.1 million was the very same company that earlier had put in the lowest offer of 3 million, eventually paid 19.1. Can you imagine if we'd put a value to that company at the start?
Looking at the value of that company, do you always take the highest bid, the highest value?
Well, it's not us to determine that. Always our client determines which bid they run with. And no, it's not always the highest. Value is much more than financial value. It's to do with the future of the staff. One deal means that you can exit quicker than another. The terms might be different from one buyer to the other. So it's predominantly financial value, but it's not entirely financial. It's a sum of these things that ultimately determines overall value.
Okay, let's look at the practicality of all of this. Let's say that I'm a business owner, I decide to sell my business, I come to you and I ask for your help. Talk me through the procedure, the process. What's going to happen from tomorrow once I've made that decision?
I guess the things that we have to offer are, first of all, experience. We sell a company every 3 to 4 working days. We're very experienced in a wide variety of sectors. We have a team of 250 staff, but within each project, 8 people are dedicated to that project with different skills. It starts with research. We have a team of 35 to 40 researchers around the world that specialise in identifying purchasers. And this is where the establishment of competitive environment or choice begins. We then have a team of callers, prospect generation callers, who get on the phone and they speak to perhaps 200 chief executives to present the idea and to start to talk about potential synergies for such an acquisition. We help our clients in terms of pre-due diligence and getting them ready for market so that there are no surprises in the future. We train our clients for the negotiation period. We handle all of the negotiations for them, and our deal leaders or lead negotiators are very experienced from a wide range of industries and sectors, highly skilled, highly trained individuals. We see this all the way through the due diligence process. We see it all the way through the legal process. But the purpose of all of this ultimately is to establish choice. And the reason we do that is we want to secure the overall value of the business, and we want to secure the future of not just the business, but the shareholders, the staff, and indeed the new owners also.
Well, you've given us a fantastic insight in how to sell your business. David Rebbettes from BCMS, thank you very much.
Thank you.